because most people would lose it under that kind of stress, where he just kind of went fuzzy. So.
Oh yeah. So have you experienced that wavy thing where it sort of goes wavy, or is he sort of one person describes that?
He's the only one I've heard describe that. He's pushing through the stress part, whereas other people would just lose it. So yeah. But I thought he did really well. He was very, very nervous, and he's very, very shy. So
yeah, he did. Well, he didn't miss anything. So that's
no.
Especially if you can get someone like him, like, well, a lot of these little kids, if you can get them in a lab and you don't sort of interfere with them, because I told that story, I think maybe on Facebook when you made the comment. That was the thing with the father was very skeptical, takes his kid to that UK thing, and then he steps in close and starts to see what she's doing, and then she says, I can't see anymore. And then they tell the father to move away, and as soon as he gets out of the field, she says, oh, I can see again. And that's this idea that if you can get these kids in a proper environment, they should score pretty well.
They would score even the researchers, if they made it fun for the kids, like make it a game and not just say, you know what, we're going to test you and see if this is actually real. Just say, hey, let's play this game and do this, that, and the other thing. It probably would get through okay. It's just the stress factor. Seriously, might as well forget it. So.
Yeah, that's where I think they did the same thing to the Chinese kids in the 1980s. They just put them under so much stress and all this kind of stuff that the kids just couldn't perform.
Exactly right. Yeah, you can't do that. So yeah.
Wow. So I wanted to talk to you today about your experience, your dream experience with the ship, and record it, because I have quite a few. I have maybe 50 people that I've talked to have had the experience. And I've got maybe a dozen or more on tape. So I'm gonna post all the various tapes that I've got of people talking about it. So it's kind of interesting, and it means something. But so let's go through your sort of experience with beings. Have you had you've had UFO stuff, or how did it all start for you in terms of?
Well, it's interesting enough. It all started right after my husband passed away. I was
you didn't have anything before your husband passed away?
Not that I remember. Dr. Greer explained it to me that after he passed away, I just basically opened right up and started seeing everything. But the interesting thing about it is I was up meditating up in our park here over their lake. And it was really interesting. I went into a deep meditation, and I received a message that said to me, we were with you when you were little. And I just was shocked. I opened my eyes like this, and this huge flash appeared right in front of me. It was like, boom. The minute my eyes opened, it was right there, bang. And so I've always been thought about doing a regression and stuff. And the interesting other thing is that when Rob and I were practicing one day, and I've done the regression thing with him, took him back to 5, because 5 is when you see the best. So you take them back, and maybe you'll be able to see blindfolded better. And he took me back to a regression, and when he took me to 5, I just had this vision of this being in front of me, and it stayed there until he took me out of age 5. So it's been a weird thing for me. I'm not, it's maybe a regression would work. I'm not really sure. So
did Rob see anything in his regression?
I don't know if he's had one.
Well, I thought you were.
No. When I did it for him, no, he didn't. No. So
because his experience was at what, 12 or something?
His experience was at 12, and he was actually standing on the side of the river when it came in, and his was documented on the news and stuff and in the paper. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So, but mine was just come and go, and the first experience I had blew my mind. I was it was right after my husband died, and I always went down to the beach, and I was going down there every night and just sat on the beach for long periods of time. And my first experience was I was sitting on the beach, and I noticed this bright light in the sky. And I was down there every night, and I knew it didn't belong there. I was sitting there watching it. I knew it didn't belong. And, you know, so I was there for 3 hours, and, you know, how everything slowly moves and stuff, but this thing moved with them. And I thought, oh, it just must be me. There's something different there, you know, so I mustn't have noticed it before. So after 3 hours, I kept an eye on it, stayed there. And after 3 hours, I thought, oh, I'm going to go back to the house. So I started packing up. And just as I started packing up, this thing started moving up through the sky, and just zigzagging up through the sky, and then stopped at the Big Dipper, just stopped and sat there. And then all of a sudden it just went poof, right over my head and gone.
Wow.
And somebody said to me, I wonder, like, they obviously telepathically knew I was just going to leave.
Yeah.
So it was like, what were they doing for that 3 hours? You know, like, they were just sitting there for 3 hours. And that was my very first experience. And then because I went down almost every night, I started seeing things all the time. There was one down there where they were setting off fireworks to my right, and kids were laughing and everything. Yeah. And off to my left was a beach fire, and people were sitting around laughing and having a beach fire. And it was almost like in the sky, I had my own fireworks.
Wow.
It was like boom, 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 like this. And I'm just sitting there, and stuff like that was happening to me almost every night. And it has sort of slowed down a bit. And I think one of the biggest things that happened to me is I went down to Paula's, what do they call it? Down in Laughlin?
Starworks, yeah.
Starworks. I went down to Starworks the first time with Rob, and we went out sky watching at night, and we were meditating. It was like midnight out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere. And I was sitting on a rock, and we were meditating. And I would think I would hallucinate this, but because when I was meditating, I saw a being standing in front of me, tall white being, and it reached out and touched me on the forehead.
Okay.
And I was filled with so much energy that Rob was actually hanging on to me, because I was just vibrating.
Wow.
And after that, I had that for like, I'd say 2-3 months. It was so strong, my knees almost buckled. Rob kept telling me, you know, you can tell them to turn it down. But it was just, yeah, it was crazy. And when it was the strongest, I'd look up and I'd see a light in the sky when it was really, really the strongest. It was a wild ride there for 3-4 years, I'll tell you. And it's still kind of going on. Yeah. Not as much as I was, because I haven't been down to the beach as much as I was at first, but I've been a little busy, but yeah.
So how long since your husband passed away? 4 years?
It's been 3.5, 4 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've had the one encounter with the being, or do you know who you were dealing with?
Well, I tried, after I saw the vision with Rob, I tried to do some research to try to, you know, see who it was. And the only thing I can see that matched what I visualized was like an Acturian or something like that. But you know, you go on the internet and you see all these pictures, and you don't know what's real and what isn't. So I can only go by what I actually saw. So yeah.
Did you just have the one encounter with a being?
To actually see him, the one night at Laughlin,
yeah.
That night, and then the telepathic. I had 2 telepathic downloads from them. Yeah, that's about it.
What are you getting in the telepathic download?
I think I told about the one this one was what blew me away. I'd never ever had this happen. I go up to my park almost every night, and I was sitting cross-legged on a rock. And I actually had a really nice night, because there were some kids next door who were into the stars, and I went over and helped them, showed them where everything was, and they were all excited, and I was having fun showing them. So I was feeling really good. And I went back to my rock, sat there cross-legged on my rock, and started meditating. And this one, I think I told you about this one, it blew my mind, because I actually levitated off the rock. I could feel the energy just pumping through me, and I actually levitated off the rock. And my next vision was going over, like I was flying over, and I was over a mountain, and I looked down and I saw 2 beings inside a mountain. And so I went down to those two beings, and they were Antarel and Avika.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was Antarel and Avika. I went down inside and they welcomed me and threw their arms around me.
Wow.
And that was the end of that vision. And I came out of it, and then I was back down on the rock. And the funny thing about it is I said, well, I'm just gonna go home. And so I got up and I started walking home, but I kept getting this feeling that I should continue. And it was so strong that a couple of times I was walking down the road, and it's so strong, my eyes almost closed as I was walking. It was just the weirdest feeling. And so finally I gave in and I went off to the side of the road, and I'm standing there. And the next thing I saw, my eyes closed. And the next thing I saw, I was a white light flying through the universe. And it was beautiful. And I was looking around and I saw the universe. And then I noticed another white light coming towards me. And the two white lights circled each other really, really, really fast out in the universe. And then we came together.
Wow.
And then I was allowed to, and then I came out of it, and then I was allowed to leave. It was like, okay, I didn't have this feeling that I had to stop anymore. It was like a message was given to me, and then I just walked home. So yeah, it was pretty wild, pretty emotional. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Mission Rama, like in listening to Ricardo or any of these people?
I was down in Laughlin again, and what's his name? It wasn't Ricardo, it was
Sixto?
Sixto. It was Sixto.
Okay.
We spent some time with Sixto, and he even did the meditation and everything that night. And he's such a nice man. I just thoroughly enjoyed that night, and it was a real experience to see what they do. Their mantras and everything is just wild. And we had all kinds of weird things happening that night. Cars turning on and off, lights going on and off, and the power lines were buzzing like crazy, and someone got a picture of an orb going across the back of the car. It was a pretty crazy night when we had him there. Yeah.
That's where you're up at Christmas Tree Road there north of Laughlin? Yeah, I think you went with Sixto, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go on. I was still back at the hotel.
It was pretty wild because I never met Sixto. And so we're trying to get enough cars, and we're piling into cars, and I ended up next to Sixto, and there's like 5 of us in the back seat.
Wow.
And I was so impressed with him because we went around a corner and I landed right on top of him. And I'm like, I am so sorry, Sixto. And he's such a gentleman. He's just so nice. He just laughed and no problem type of thing. He's just a nice man. Yeah. But I was really impressed with that night. I'd love to do that again. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. Because you mentioned Antarel and being the levitated thing. I don't know if you're aware, last August, they had an event at Shasta. 9 people. It wasn't Antarel, it was Adama. All 9 were levitated off the ground.
Oh, wow. I've heard Adama. I don't know where I've heard it before, but I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting that you would have a levitating thing with you didn't recognize the mountain as Shasta or anything.
I didn't it was just a mountain. It was just a mountain. And I always felt like I was actually planning on going down to that expedition because I thought it was Shasta, and I just thought I need to go down. So I made all these arrangements to go, and then COVID came. So I never made it.
Yeah, there's quite a few groups that go up there. And just make sure you take your coat. It's very, very cold at night.
I know. I was down there with Costa and Hollis, and we spent a week with them, and yeah, it can get really cold. We weren't up in the mountain though. I went up in the mountain by myself, so a couple of times, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
so let's go to the experience, the dream experience with that you talked about, and describe it the way you described it, and then we'll maybe talk about it a bit.
Okay. Well, I meditate. And this day I was normally I try to direct it, and this time I just said, I'm just going to sit here cross-legged, and I'm just going to let my mind go wherever it wants to go. And so I was meditating, and I went into a really deep one. It was crazy. And the next thing I knew, I was over at a girlfriend's place in Romania. Never been to her apartment ever.
Wow.
I was in her apartment and I was looking around, and of course the time difference, she's in bed.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm looking around and I'm noticing the bedding, I'm noticing the pillows, I'm noticing the color, how she was laying and stuff. And then my next thought was, oh my gosh, I'm invading her privacy. I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I left. And then the next thing I had is I was inside the ship, and there was a window ahead of me. There was a console in front of me, and I looked out and I could see the earth below me. It was beautiful. See the earth below me.
So you're high up above the earth?
Oh yeah, way up, and I'm up by the earth. Yeah, the earth was huge, so we couldn't have been too far away. It like I would say a quarter of it showed. It was massive.
Okay.
You know, and I was looking out this window, and I'm standing there, and I could sense someone behind me.
Okay.
So, and that was all it was. And then I was back in my body. And the next morning, I called my girlfriend and I said, I was at your apartment last night. And she said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, I want to, check some things out. I've never been there. And I asked her what color her pillows were. And I said, are they red? She says, yes. I said, is your coverlet like a paisley? She said, yes. And I said, you were laying on your right side, curled up with pink pajamas on? She said, yes. And I said, oh, I think I really was there. And she says, I'm glad I was alone. We just laughed. So I always wondered, since I was actually there, was I actually in this ET ship? So it just kind of made me crazy. So I was out sky watching with some friends, and this one fellow is very psychic, and he has all kinds of things happening with him. And we were just chatting over this fire, and I was telling him about my experience, and he said to me, relive it. He said, relive it and make it physical, as if you were physically there. Just relive it. And so I did. I just closed my eyes and relived it. It was like it happened again. And when I opened my eyes, I looked, and he's got his eyes closed. And he says to me, he opens his eyes and he says to me, I can see the being behind you. And I said, oh, and he said, he's white, he's tall, he's got very large eyes, slanted. And he said he has a tiny nose, like 2 holes, tiny, tiny ears, and a tiny mouth. And he said the most thing is he has this ridge going over his head like that. And like I say, when he told me that, then I remembered seeing that same vision when Rob took me back to age 5. So it pretty blew my mind. And he said to me, I think I get the feeling this person is around you all the time. And he said, I get the impression that he's your guide, and that he allowed you to see that. So yeah,
so when you relived it, what happened with you?
When I relived it, went for this fellow.
Yeah.
I just took myself back to where I was standing there with my hands on the console, and visualizing the earth, visualizing the console, visualizing what I was feeling and stuff at the same time, because he told me to make it as physical, kind of relive everything that was happening. Yeah.
What kind of emotion is there emotion attached to it? In terms
I was just in awe of the view. Can you imagine standing there and being that close to earth and seeing it? I was just more in awe. It actually happened so quick. I was actually in awe, and noticing things, and felt somebody behind me, and it was like a very quick thing, and then I was back in my body. So, and like I say, I always wondered if it was real. I always did wonder it, but only because 2 seconds before that I was in my girlfriend's apartment. So I always wondered, and my friend told me, yeah, you were there. So yeah.
Did you notice anything on the console? What any stuff on the console, or are they
I just noticed, it was just flat. My hands were on it and it was just flat. Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And that's pretty common that people always describe, sometimes, most times, two beings behind them, but they don't know if they're human or they're alien. Did nothing was said to you to put your
No,
hand on the console
nothing.
or anything? No.
Nothing was said. I just felt somebody behind me, and nothing was said to me at all. It was just like how it felt. It was like I just appeared there. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, and it was like the vision was like, wow. It happened really fast. It just really happened fast. So yeah,
Could you tell whether the being was on the right or left side?
right behind me, directly behind me,
Or directly behind you? Okay.
directly behind me. Yeah. So
Have you ever had any visions of some experiences we'll talk about, being in a classroom, being taught, levitating, stuff like that? No, a lot of people.
no. The time that I levitated, it all seems to be like it just happens spontaneously with me. Like when I levitated, it was like I was in a deep meditation again, but it was like wow, everything that I've had happen to me has been spontaneous, just out of the blue. Yeah.
But your levitation would be like an out of body thing. It was sort of like your essence was moving up.
It actually felt like my body lifted.
Oh, okay.
It actually really did feel like my body lifted.
Wow.
I don't know, because I was in a deep meditation and I could feel this. It's hard to explain, but it did actually feel like I lifted. Yeah,
Wow.
hard to explain.
And so we talked a little bit before about the blindfold thing. When did that start?
Um, uh, I was with Rob. Um, we became friends while my husband was still alive.
Yeah.
And I met Rob, and then Rob called me and told me about this blindfold stuff and said, "Hey, you want to do this?" So I went, "Sure." And
I got nothing else to do.
And that was the beginning of that was the beginning of it's been 4 years now. So yeah. And then it started out just doing training. I really wanted to do it. And the first time I went in, it was she told me I couldn't do it. Number one, because of my age. Number two, because I just went through a trauma. And she
And
said,
this is
"You
a
won't be able
trainer
to."
in, let me stop you just a sec. Is this a trainer in Ottawa, or is this the
Yes.
European
Yeah.
people?
This was the trainer in Ottawa.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't. Nothing happened to me the 4 days I was there.
Yeah.
I saw Liz. I saw Liz. She opened right up. Marcus, I think he did a bit too, and Rob saw stuff, and I saw nothing.
Okay.
So, and then I think it was because she told me right in the very first, sitting at the table having a discussion, and she told me before we even started, you won't be able to.
We'll take your money, but it's not going to work.
Yeah. So Rob and I went back, and we just started training ourselves back and forth. Started training and training, and we moved quite a ways, but we were just experimenting with anything that worked, just experimenting, and just trying everything. And so then we had Michaela come over, and we did her training, and I did open up with her. She was actually with me. We were sitting up in the bedroom chatting one night, and she said, "Here, let's try the blindfold." And she put the blindfold on me tight, and she turned off all the lights but one little light. And I remember while we were talking, I saw that whole light like right there on my left. I was like, whoa, it was pretty wild. So then that's where I played pool at Rob's place with blindfold on, and that's really difficult. So then I kind of went backwards, but Rob and I kept training, trying the stuff. And then after a while, we started into the research. So then we went to Nikolai and Marina, and did their training, and we actually read and everything with them. And then after their training, we kind of went backwards again. So we try to tell people they need to train. And so my last session on my own, I'm at the point now that I do see, I see a lot of times on my left.
Okay.
And a lot of times up here. But sometimes when I put the mask on, I just send my consciousness out and can see everything. And I've come to the conclusion that when I see everything, it's almost like too much information coming in.
Yeah.
So if I have say I have a card, and this is what I experienced the last time, I'm seeing everything, but I put a card up and I say to myself, okay, go. And I can see my hand, I can see the card,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's too much information and it won't give me what's on the card right away. I have to sit and work on it. And so, that was the initial reaction, that everybody thinks that once you open up, you can see everything. And Seth does. He sees absolutely everything in front of him. But I think it's because of my age or whatever, or my left brain gets involved. It's only letting in so much. So I'm just continually training, trying to get it to open up, open up everything for me.
But talk about how much you've progressed since you first started to what you can do now.
I started out with nothing. I saw one color up in Ottawa, and that Marcus gave it to me.
Yeah.
And I've moved back and forth. Both Rob and I have moved back and forth. When I started out, I saw nothing with the mask, and I'm now can see everything around me. And I'm really working hard to read, like Seth did. I'm really working hard to do that. And I'm actually thinking of taking more training to help me get into the right path to do that again and make it stay. They say that you have to read like 5 or 6 pages of script or of writing in order for it to stay. Otherwise, you'll just keep going backwards. And I haven't got to that point. When Marina trained, I read articles, and I saw the pictures on the sheets and stuff. And then when Rob and I did the night vision, I saw the title of the magazine in the dark. And I think it's just my the left brain keeps getting in and shutting it back. But like I say, I can see when I put my mask on, I can see, or I close my eyes, I can see. It's just that it's too much information for me, so I'm just keeping working on that. So yeah.
Wow. And you train every day?
I try. I actually backed off because Rob and I were training every day together, Skype, or we drive back and forth. And then I started going backwards. And I thought, right? I think I'm overdoing it. And actually, Rob has posted this scientist who says that the biggest thing to do is meditate. But if you train too much, you go backwards. So I actually quit. I told Rob I needed a break. So I came home and I didn't touch it for 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, didn't do anything. So then I was out walking with a girlfriend, and we came back, and you're happy. We made arrangements to go hiking and have a glass of wine afterwards and everything. I came home, felt really good, and I thought, hey, I'm going to try to practice. And it blew my mind. I sat down, and it was just, everything went boom. It just opened right up. I got I have colored rings. I could see the fluorescent colored rings in my hand. I could see any card that I put in my hand. Like, I have packets of cards. I saw all the colors. It stayed, and it didn't matter if I had my mask on or if I had my eyes closed. It just stayed open for 3 hours. I'd come out, make a cup of coffee, go back, sit down, and it was wide open still. And that blew my mind. So I think in some ways you can overtrain.
Yeah, that would be like, I remember we were having a discussion with Rob when you guys were in Manitoba about this left brain thing, that if you get into being a scientist and we're going to figure this thing out, then your left brain is basically running the show. And it's the ability to shut down the skeptical mind, the thinking mind, and stuff like that. And like a kid, the kid won't be trying to prove it or do, especially if you make it fun. It basically puts you in that loop that you need to be in.
And you'll notice when we train people, we like, I just actually trained a girl this morning, and she was having a hard time. And I said to her, I said, play the piano on your mask. So she's like tapping away on her mask and everything. And I said, and she still wasn't getting it. And I said, okay, put your hand on your left cheek and rub it really, really hard. And focus on the feeling you're getting between your hand and your cheek. So she's like going like this, like crazy. And then she goes, that's dark blue. And I went, yes. Wow. You just have to send the left brain to that and just stop, because it interferes. It just analyzes it to death and will tell you what's a million colors. It's once you get that left brain distracted, then the right brain will. I said, I got it from you. Left brain liar, right brain always tells the truth. So if you can occupy the left brain, the right brain will tell you what you got. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I had her tapping her feet like crazy. And when she did that, she was getting shapes and stuff. And like she was just going a mile a minute. When she left, she was so happy, just so happy. And yeah. So yeah, it's very, very unusual. And I know we learned this the first time that Rob wasn't getting something, and I walked up and I flicked him on the forehead and boom, he got everything. Yeah. Another time I walked up and I had this piece of cardboard and I banged him on the top of the head. Boom, there it was. And then he got to the point he was sitting there banging himself on the head. Yeah. It's just our left brain just gets so involved, and laughing. You know, if you start laughing, it's there. The left brain doesn't get involved when you're laughing. So you got to make it fun. And that's what the kids have.
Yeah. Yeah. That was with when I was making the faces at Seth when he started to laugh, because he was sort of blocking there once he, you know, the nervousness came in and like that. But if you can get them sort of relaxed with the game stuff. So interesting.
And that's what I said. That's what I said to Leonie, because she texted me and she said he was upset because it started to get blurry. Remember, he wanted to quit because he was starting to get blurry, and he was upset that happened. And I said, no. I said he did really, really well. I said most people would just, most kids or most people would just go black. They'd just lose it. He just went fuzzy, you know. So that means he still had it. The left brain was just getting involved and stuff. So, and he was worried about that when he was driving too. It started to happen the day he was driving, but he was concentrating so hard.
Yeah.
And they called me and they said, he thinks he's losing it. And I said, no, he hasn't lost it. He's just, it was the stress of driving around all the trees and stuff. So
yeah, well, the left brain wants to take control. It says, I'll take care of this. This is my job. And when you try to quiet, like I was even thinking about this, I was walking the other day, where you're doing the sort of meditation where breathe in, you know, hold it, breathe out, and then the ego mind is going, no, we don't want this. I want to talk. Like, no, what are you doing? Like, and that's the thing, is to be able to shut. It's very hard to, especially for older people, to shut that voice down that wants to take control and be the scientist. And I'm going to figure this thing out, and I'm going to manipulate this thing. Almost like I mentioned, this happens in psychedelics as well, or near-death experiences. Where they talk about the people with the bad near-death experiences are the people who are trying to control it, who have a very firm thing. Or in psychedelics, if you go in and think you're going to run the show in there, you're in for a real shock, because that's the thing, is it's the ability to get all that ego stuff out of the way and go into that right brain, female brain. We want the male brain that, is in charge and fighting and manipulative and smart and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. When I train somebody, if they tell me, oh, well, I trained one person and they texted me saying, I'm running late. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And then when they got there, I said, well, no, how be I give you another 15 minutes to relax. And then the person said, oh, okay. So after 15 minutes, we Skyped, and that person spent 15 minutes blocking people on Facebook because apparently he got given a hard time when he was out. Oh, yeah. So he was like blocking crazily like this. And then I call him to do the seeing and he saw nothing. And he's like, well, how come I can't see? And I'm like, so from now on, I tell people if they have something going on, that's really left brain. Like if something happens just before a training, I said, just leave it for another day, or let's push it on to later on the day, because you can't just sit down and do that. Or I have to spend about an hour relaxing them and calming them down and telling them to get rid of all that stuff. And it takes a lot of time to do that. I want to be like Seth, where you sit down, and that's what happened to me the night I opened all right up. No meditation, no preparation. I just sat down and said, I'm going to do this, put the mask on, and there it was. That's what I want to be able to do. And I'm at that point that I can do that without having spent so much time. So, and you notice the kids, Seth, he just puts it on and off. It's like, and he can do that with eyes closed. He doesn't need the mask.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's what I want. I want to be able to do that. So.
And who are you training? Or maybe we should have a thing where you can do the same thing, where you have a little soccer game or a little, play thing where everybody sort of gets out of that, I'm going to sit here and do it, you know, like the
Yeah,
engage
I
the
prefer
brain.
to do it in person. Because of Skype, you know, we have to do it the way it is, or because of COVID, we have to do it the way it is. I prefer to do it in person because you can get people laughing a lot harder, and you can play tricks on them, and it's a lot more fun, and they open right up that way. With Skype, it's really difficult to get them to that point, you know.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that was impressive. I'm glad you put me on to Seth, and hopefully some of the people will pick that up, and I'm sure you send it off to some of the people who are working on it. I'm pretty sure they're going to be pretty impressed because he did really well, even though he got blurry there for a second.
Yeah, I think he'd be fine. And I talked to them last night, and I said, you know, and I told them to ignore the naysayers.
Yeah.
Don't worry about them. And I told them to just, you know, keep him practicing, keep making it fun. And if he ever goes in to be tested, they'd have to make it fun.
Yeah.
You know, you can't put kids or people under major stress and then expect this to work. It's not that way. It was like the one guy on there who said, well, he's looking out of the left side, he's not even looking out front.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
always
like,
like
we're not looking through your eyes, you know.
they're always doing that. You
what,
see that all the time. They're sitting like this, you know.
yeah, well, if you watch my videos, you'll see me, and I'm like this the whole time because I see out here. So Rob's holding a thing on the screen, and I'm like this the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not your eyes, and people, and actually when I'm training, people will hold it like this, and I'm saying, well, that's maybe not where you're, like, move it around, see where your window is. It could be anywhere. I had one little boy that he saw out of his wrist.
Wow.
And I couldn't, I'm going like this with him, and I say, oh, well, where can you see and everything? And I went down here, and he goes, and he told me what the card was. And I was like, and this is the very first kid I trained. And I'm like, you're seeing out, where are you seeing out of? And he goes, here. And I'm like, really? You know? And then I tried to tell him to move it up, which was wrong. That was my very first training. He sees where he sees. You don't see here. So
it's your left brain scientist getting in there.
Yeah. And you know, I say it's all consciousness because I've had the experience where, well, when I went out to my girlfriend's apartment, but I've also gone to Rob's. Like, we'll be Skyping, and he'll walk across the room with a colored piece of paper. And as he's walking across the room, I saw him walk across the room. I was there. And then he says, what color sheet of paper do I have? And I tell him, I can actually see him standing at the window with the colored sheet of paper. So it's consciousness, truly is. Yeah.
Do you think we're going to be able to get across, like, if these kids, they'll want to test these kids, do you think they understand this principle of making it fun, of staying out of the kids, especially if you're skeptical, staying out of the kids' range where the kid is reading and stuff?
Yeah.
I don't. It's up to you and I to protect these kids in terms of not putting them in situations where they're going to fail. Because I think you and I both know that these are the things you've got to do to make it work, to keep it fun and stuff.
I do know of one girl in particular, and I think I told you, the one girl in particular, they went to Randy, and he was so skeptical. They basically had her whole head taped. This is about the final day. Basically had her whole head taped, and with this mask on and everything, and actually were distracting her and all this kind of stuff. The kid left in tears, and she never saw again. So, if they're going to test these people, it's got to be fun. It's got to be.
There has to be some conditions, because you could put this kid into a situation where it'll be traumatizing for the rest of their life.
Exactly. And I do know Dean questioned one of the things that Leonie was doing with two girls. The two girls were back to back, and they had a sheet of paper in front, and they were blindfolded, and they were putting shapes, like drawing shapes on the sheet of paper, but they were back to back.
Yeah.
And so as they were drawing the shape, the girl behind her was drawing the same shape.
Yeah.
And this was just a training session for Leonie, and Dean came in and said, well, you should do this, that, the other thing. And Leonie said, no, at this point, I'm just giving the kids confidence in what they're doing. showing them what's possible and stuff. I don't want to get into that. I just want them, and some of these kids are spectrum, like she described. She's really good with them, and that's why Mary's sending them to her. And she gets them to get confidence in themselves and feel proud of themselves that they can do this and that it's normal, that it's normal. And so she is doing really amazing work there. She really is. And we have to really protect these kids that are doing this for sure, and like if you're gonna film them, if you're gonna test them, make it fun. Don't make it a scientific project. So
yeah, I agree with you, because I mean, it's we've learned that much about it, that's people think that it's like objects, like there's me and you, and I don't affect what you do. Yes, you do. You and then think that you're independent of the experiment. You're part of the experiment, and I think like ions should know that you're part of the experiment. That there is no separation. So
exactly.
Hopefully it works well. Let's keep going with them, and hopefully they send us some of these interesting videos, because those are the ones that are, even if people are a little bit skeptical, they're still very entertaining when they're playing games and stuff like that, or doing treasure hunts and stuff like that, where it's pretty impressive to watch.
It is. It blows me away when Leonie sends me some of these pictures of what these kids are doing. But I'm really careful of who I send it out to her. I always ask her first, because she's training kids and some of the parents don't want them on the screen. So like I say, the one with the knife is pretty impressive, but the kid that he was with, the dad doesn't want him on screen. So, but the one that couldn't do it was the one that they don't want on screen. So I don't know. But Seth was like bang, 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 bang. They wanted to try it out. So he does some pretty cool stuff. I asked them, they said they're going to do the one of him playing the video game. They're going to try do that again, so that we can post that. So that's pretty cool, because we had a guy on our Facebook site who put a video game up and said, "Oh, I'll be impressed if someone can do this." And then I'm looking through, and I have one of Seth doing just that. He's like in his pajamas, leaning over, like any kid would be, leaning over and just bored to tears. And then the camera sweeps to the game, and there's the game going on. And then he comes back, and he's like this, He's pretty laid back kid. He's a cool kid.
Well, hopefully he gained some confidence from last night in terms of being able to do it. And that's what
and
I think.
It took a bit to get his dad to say okay, because he's pretty protective of him. But it was good to see him standing beside him, giving him confidence and stuff. So
because he is kind of a little famous kid now. He's sort of the only kid that's sort of on camera and doing this on camera. Some of the kids.
Well, now his sister is wanting to practice again. Wow. His sister was as good as him, only she's gone back to school, and like she's getting a 90 average in school, but she's very left brain now. But now she wants to get back in practicing again. I have a video of her. I can send that one to you. I have a video of her, and she's sitting with her back to a basketball net. And Leonie's telling her, like, Leonie's not direct. She's just telling her to relax, focus, send herself out to the basketball net. Yeah. And the kid throws the ball up and twice hits the ring.
Wow.
And I think she was, how old would Layla be? She'd be 7 or 8. And she just went poof right into the net. Like, she didn't get in the net, but she hit the hoop, which is amazing in itself. Twice. So it's pretty cool. Yeah,
it's interesting stuff. I appreciate you're doing that, and maybe helping Sinead. She's a school teacher, so she may have a little bit of resistance when she first gets going, but she's pretty excited when she heard that she may get some training. So
well, she all she has to do is just relax, and like I said, I made a couple of comments, and it's like, try it, you'll be mind blown when it starts happening, and when you really understand what's happening, you just it's crazy. Yeah. And all the other things, when Leonie told me about the kids telling the granddad what was wrong with the tractor.
Yeah, that was impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said to Seth, I said, you went out and actually saw that hose leaking. He said, yeah. So that was pretty cool.
And tell a story again about the one with the car accident. Because I remember you talking, I don't remember the details, that some kid in a training session had the car accident. they could hear the car accident, or was that?
Oh, a friend of ours over in Serbia, he had a bunch of kids in his building. He was training them. And the kids were all blindfolded and he was training them. And one of the kids, I'm not sure if it was one or a couple of the kids, went, "What's that noise?" And he said he didn't hear anything. And the kids said they heard a crash. And he found out later, like way over about 5 blocks away, there was a crash and those kids heard it clear as a bell while they were doing the training. So yeah, and I know Nada said it was just it was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other aspect is we're right now we're doing the eye thing, but we know that there's the hearing and this precognitive thing where kids can actually figure out things or see stuff around the corner and stuff like that. So the potential,
we all can do that. All can do that. The way I had it explained to me is once you start doing this, you start growing new neurons in your brain. Yeah. You start growing new ones. They said for anybody with Alzheimer's or anything like that, it helps because you're growing new stuff in your brain. So that's how you can start hearing and stuff and actually help with your thinking and everything. Yeah. So it's pretty impressive. And I actually think everybody should be doing it. So
yeah. Well, I'll help promote it, and I'm sure you're going to help promote it, especially when they start doing the stuff like they filmed the telekinesis stuff. I mean, that's pretty impressive stuff. If they're doing that kind of stuff, where and he said what in minutes he was doing it. I mean,
yeah, oh yeah. He has a lot. Seth has a lot of experiences. When he was talking about talking to animals.
Yeah.
And the animal told him, I'm not sure if it's a parrot or something, told him his name and everything.
Yeah.
And like it's just crazy. Yeah. So
he's a good subject. Thank you for putting me onto him. So
okay. Well, I just did it because he was so excited that it was going on Facebook. So and I went, well, Grant's the guy to get people liking this. So, but he was so excited. Leonie told me he was sitting there looking at the YouTube site, watching the counts go up. That's how excited he was.
Yeah, I should look at my Facebook. I think I'm friends with his father now. The Facebook really got a lot of hits overnight.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are.
I haven't looked at it, but no, that's great. Yeah.
There was a lot more than most of my posts. I mean, I think it's 120 or 130 likes or whatever on there. So, so it's getting kind of, and they haven't even seen the video yet. They just, they saw my write-up about what he had done.
Well, I put it on my site, and I've had 2 or 3 people say, I'm waiting to see that. I'm just waiting to see that. So that's cool.
So he's our little guy that'll help promote the thing and get people interested. And so thank him very much, and thank Leonie and the father.
I love hearing the little guy talk. When he was sitting there explaining what was happening in the car with his Aussie accent, I thought it was so cool. And his sister going, screaming, "You're gonna hit the tree." Yeah. I thought it was great.
Yeah, he's a good proponent for this. He's very likable and very yeah. So let's keep going, and thank you for this. And I'll send you a copy of this, and you can do what you want with it and post it or whatever, or send it. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, take care.